Hello. Welcome back to my channel. I am Monet and you are watching Life is Monet. Welcome to my promise to myself and to you to stick with my book buying plans for the year of 2022. I've mentioned this restriction before on my channel, but I thought that it would be cool to do a more thorough video of what exactly it is I plan on doing and how I plan to do it. In the year of 2022, I can only purchase 25 books throughout the entire year. That is an average of 2 books a month, where if there's one month where I just absolutely have to have an extra book, I will be able to purchase 3. But that will only be one time. I feel like during COVID, my book buying got excessively out of hand. I definitely was emotionally purchasing. I definitely had eyes that was bigger than my stomach. I was buying so many books and they were just sitting on my shelves taking forever to read. Now, this is not to shame anyone about how much money we spend on books in the book community. It's your money. Spend it how you want. I know that I'm a Cancer, so emotionally purchasing stuff on a whim, that's my forte. That's my MO. That's what I do. One of the more derivative reasons for why I decided to make a change to my book buying habit for the year of 2022 is simply because I got tired of having an excessively long TBR. And I was purchasing books, like I said before, that I was not getting to right away. And I said, you know what? Like, there's no need for me to purchase new releases right away if I'm not going to read them. And I have a pretty good relationship with the publishers who put out most of the books that I am typically interested in, such as Orbit or Penguin. A lot of the books that I read, especially because I read a lot of adult fantasy, come from Orbit, and a lot of the YA that I read come from Penguin, and just other publishers as well I've been able to work with throughout the year. And I've just decided that there's no reason for me to be spending money on books that I'm not going to be reading. So this is going to be an attempt to tackle my TBR. So with the year 2021, my goal was to really tackle my unread TBR. And for a while, I was doing so good reading the books that had been sitting on my shelf for a long time. But the problem was that I was adding more books constantly. And so this year, the goal is to nip that in the bud. I can get through my unread TBR if I stop adding more books to it. Again, this is very personal to me. I don't care how much money we spend on books. I have spent money with the best of them. I really don't care about money spending because books are something that makes me happy, and I spend a comfortable amount of money on books and candles, and those two things are just it for me. This is solely an attempt to be like, okay, I am a self-eating snake right now because I'm constantly reading and trying to crash through my TBR, but also I'm constantly adding more books to my TBR. Like, my TBR is hunting me. It's a monster under my bed. So with that being said, I feel like if this was more about how much money I spend, it would be more of a book buying ban, which I know that some people do where they're not purchasing books for a certain period of time. I really enjoy book shopping. I love perusing the shelves and going to Barnes & Nobles and doing the 3-for-2 deal on Amazon. I love my local secondhand bookstores and indie bookstores, and I still want to be able to purchase. So this is not a book buying ban. This is a book buying restriction, which I feel like is more realistic. Now I can definitely stick to it. Now, this is something that I have been planning for a good chunk of 2021, and it's time to put it in action. So the only books that don't count for my 25 book limit for the year of 2022 are books that I am so excited for that I have planned to pre-order. I've already pre-ordered or plan to pre-order or plan to purchase as soon as they come out. And I'm going to talk about some of those books today. This is not all the books that I am interested in for the year of 2022 at all. These are just books that I plan to purchase a physical copy of. I will upload a separate video where I talk about the books that are on my radar that I want to read, but I don't see me actually needing to own a copy because I would rather try to get those on Libby or from my library, or I do have an Audible membership. And for the year of 2021, I barely used any Audible credits. I just was burnt out on audiobooks, and so I am sitting on like 14 or 16 Audible credits that I have just not used throughout the year. And seeing as though Audible takes my money regardless, I am going to be using those in the year of 2022. I did have a book of the month subscription, and I contemplated how I was going to go about that. If I was going to include my book of the month subscription in my 25 book limit. I'm still unsure because I don't actually get a book every month from Book of the Month. I'm not always interested in the books that they have to offer. I believe that this year I purchased 3 book of the month books. So honestly, if I think about it, I don't actually really need to keep that subscription. If I do keep it open, then I think I'm going to include that in my 2-book restriction for the month. Some of these books I am not exactly sure will actually release in the year of 2022, but if they do, then I know for certain that I want to grab a copy of physically. For those of you guys who are watching this video and you want to know some of the other books that I'm interested in, I just probably don't plan to purchase a copy because I'm not exactly sure I'm going to like it. And there's no reason for me to own a book that I actually don't like, because I'm over that. I'm over book hoarding. I will post a video for that as well. The first book is going to be House of Sky and Breath. I have actually already pre-ordered this book. This is going to be the book 2 in the Crescent City series by Sarah J. Maas. The first one was House of Sky, Earth and Blood. Yeah, the first book in the Crescent City series was House of Earth and Blood, and this is book 2, which is House of Sky and Breath. And I know that this is supposed to come out February 15th, and is definitely one of my more highly anticipated reads for 2022. And I'm such a Sarah J. Maas fan that I have to have a physical copy. The second book is going to be Book of Night by Holly Black. This one is kind of like a risky purchase. I never read The Cruel Prince. It was actually on my video I did in 2020 about books that I would probably never read. It's like an anti-TBR video, and I remember talking about The Cruel Prince. However, Holly Black is an author that I am very interested in, and I'm excited to read something from her that is new and adult and more tailored to my taste. The Book of Night has been described as the modern dark fantasy of shadowy thieves and secret societies in the vein of Ninth House and the Night Circus. In Charlie Hall's world, shadows can be altered for entertainment and cosmetic preferences, but also to increase power and influence. You can alter someone's feelings and memories, but manipulating shadows has a cost, with the potential to take hours or days from your life. Your shadow holds all the parts of you that you want to keep hidden, a second self standing just to your left, walking behind you into lit rooms, and sometimes it has a life of its own. It honestly sounds like a book that I would expect from B.E. Schwab, but instead I'm getting to read it from Holly Black. So it's definitely one of the more intriguing releases that I'm anticipating. But we don't have a release date or a title for this one just yet, and so I'm not able to pre-order, but when it does drop, I will be doing it immediately, and that is going to be the sequel to All of Us Villains, a book I love so much that it has to be on display on my shelves. I am really looking forward to book 2. I received an ARC for this book in 2021, and I was so excited. It was such a fun time that I had to go and purchase a physical copy, and I'm hoping that I'm lucky enough to get the ARC again next year. In All of Us Villains, we are following 7 prominent families from a town in a world where all high magic has been lost, except for one of these 7 families controls high magic for the duration of a generation. Once a generation, they all have to send one champion into the blood trials, and they have to win and survive and also murder all the other contestants. And the victor of the trials, that person's family, will control high magic until the next generation. In this book, every character that we follow is entirely nuanced. They are all villainous. They are all desperate and willing to do whatever it takes to win the blood trials. There is an aspect in this book where there was a tell-all release that has now informed the whole world and the government that this trial has been happening in secret for the last 800 years. So now we have people coming to the town, they're rioting, they're protests, we have the government trying to be involved, we have people trying to manipulate the trials in any way that they can, but the trials actually cannot be manipulated, or so you think. There's one character in the book that actually wants to destroy the trials and break the curse, but by doing so, they are tempting the fates and possibly bringing about the destruction and death of everyone in the trial. This was a YA series that was hard-hitting and very fast-paced, and I highly recommend that you guys read it. And while I am very happy that I received an ARC of this book in advance, it also brings me a kind of sad feeling because now I have to wait even longer for book 2 to come out, but it will be coming out in 2022. We just don't know when. It is definitely one of my more favorite YA books that I've ever read. The next book is going to be the sequel to another ARC that I really enjoyed, and that's going to be Beasts of Prey 2, another book that we don't exactly know a release date for, and we don't have a title, but we are expecting it to come in 2022. I had a grand time working with Penguin, and I got to grade the author of this book to promote it, and I'm so excited that people have read it and loved it as much as I have. In this book, we're following 2 characters. One is a girl by the name of Kofi. The second is a guy by the name of Akan. Things occur in this book that sets them on the same path to hunt down this beast that has been terrorizing their village and basically murdering people. And for the sake of both of their survivals, more specifically Kofi, who is in servitude at the night zoo, her and her family and her mother, they have to be in service of this zoo of wild exotic beasts, and it's very dangerous, and it's hard to by yourself yourself out of this servitude. And so they embark on this journey to go into this jungle that is supposed to be entirely dangerous, to hunt down one of the more dangerous beasts of all. This was really fun. I enjoyed the world building. I enjoyed the African folklore. It was very Black. I enjoyed the characters so much. And I have not had this much fun reading a African inspired folklore book since Children of Blood and Bone. And I have been waiting for Children of Blood and Bone to release updates about the last book in the trilogy for a long time, and it's just, we have no information. And so getting Beasts of Prey, I was surprised at how much I really enjoyed it and how much it satisfied me in my quest for Black girl magic. Following Kofi and Khan actually made me less focused on not having an update from Children of Blood and Bone. So even if I received an arc of this book from Penguin, which I'm pretty sure that I probably might, I still would be purchasing a hard copy of the finished copy, because I'm definitely a fan and I do want to support Ayana as a debut author. She definitely did her thing with book 1. So the third option is going to be the second book in the Alex Stern series, which would be the sequel to Ninth House. I know that she's been busy with wrapping up the Rule of Wolves, which is the Nikolai duology, as well as the Netflix show that just came out. And I'm patiently waiting. I don't know, but seeing as though Ninth House came out in 2020, I'm hoping that we get an update and maybe even release in 2022. Not sure, but if it does come out, I will definitely be purchasing it. In this book of Ninth House, we're following this character named Alex Stern. Alex Stern has had a very rough upbringing, and she's kind of been like on the streets doing her own thing, whatever she can to survive. She gets an offer to attend Yale University free of charge, as long as she does this kind of like security position for this secret society that deals with occult magic, basically making sure that they follow the rules and keep everything in line. But as she's at this school, a murder happens and someone goes missing, and she gets wrapped up and enthralled with all the things that comes with working with a secret society on a campus, all while trying to keep up with her studies at Yale University, when she was not the most studious person when she was actually in high school, and she hasn't done anything scholarly since. So the next book I plan to purchase a physical copy of is going to be Galliant by V.E. Schwab. This is another book that talks about shadows. After hearing reviews about people who read A Darker Shade of Magic, and that book also follows shadowy aspects, I'm excited for this one too. I'm excited for this new twist and turn in the fantasy genre, where we're actually exploring more things regarding shadows, because it just feels like perfectly sinister. The description of this book says, everything casts a shadow, even the world we live in, and as with every shadow, there's a place where it must touch, a scene where the shadow meets its source. Olivia Pryor has grown up in the Maryland School for Girls, and all she has of her past is her mother's journal, which seems to unravel into the madness. Then a letter invites Olivia to come home to Galliant. Yet when Olivia arrives, no one is expecting her. But Olivia is not about to leave the first place that feels like home. It doesn't matter if her cousin Matthew is hostile or if she sees half-foreign ghouls haunting in the hallways. Olivia knows that Galliant is hiding secrets, and she is determined to uncover them. It's been described as perfect for fans of Neil Gaiman, Holly Black, Melissa Albert, and Garth Nix. So very interested in that, and these are books that I anticipate to be 5-star reads for me, and so I can't wait to have a fun reading experience with these. So the next book would be Where the Drowned Girls Go, and that would be the next installment in the Wayward Children series. I started reading Seanan McGuire's Wayward Children series this year, and I had a lot of fun with them, and it also encouraged me to read Middle Game, and so I am anticipating anything new that Seanan McGuire releases, because I have just been enjoying them so far, and I want to continue with the Wayward Children series. Even though I don't enjoy every book, I really appreciate and admire the world that Seanan McGuire has been able to build. If you're not familiar with the Wayward Children series, it is a set of novellas where we follow different characters who have had very magical Alice in Wonderland experience and how they cope with that. We have some characters who are cast out of their world for not following rules, and now they're sad to be home and they want to go back. There are some characters who go into a world that's much more deadlier than theirs, and they're fighting to get home. We have some characters who actually fit in perfectly in this new weird magical portal fantasy world that they've entered, and each book is entirely different, and just the way that Seanan McGuire can think of these worlds and bring them to life in 200 pages is just unmatched, and I'm excited to continue with the series because I've had so much fun with them. There's a lot of representation in these books, and they are adult novellas, and so that's always fun for me. Speaking of Middle Game and Shauna Maguire, there is a sequel to Middle Game coming out in 2022, and that is going to be Seasonal Fears. I enjoyed Middle Game a lot, and I'm excited to jump back into this world when we get a new release in this series. So in the Middle Game, we are following two twins by the name of Roger and Dodger. One is really inept at all things English and writing and words, and the other is really good at all things mathematics. These two twins fit together perfectly, filling in holes and blanks that the other one has, and so together they make a complete whole, except for the fact that Roger and Dodger have actually never met. They have grown up across the states from each other, and they just one day discovered that they can communicate in each other's brain, and they just fit perfectly, and they immediately become a crutch for one another. And so we follow them as they go through all these different things, because there are people in the background who are actually manipulating Roger and Dodger's interactions with each other for the sake of some secret experiment that doesn't really make sense until the end. In Seasonal Fears, which is book 2, we will not be following Roger and Dodger. I believe that their story has ended completely. We will be following two new characters by the name of Melanie and Harry. Then we have Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I read People We Meet on Vacation as well as Beach Read this year, and I enjoyed her books enough and her writing enough. I hadn't purchased the next book that's going to be released by her, which is called Book Lovers. I actually plan to go into this one entirely blind, so I do not know what it's about, but she's an author of romance, and from what I've seen so far, she's really good about writing about realistic relationships, dealing with the real problems. As a book lover myself, just the title is enough to inspire me to be excited about this book. But for the next book, we don't have a pre-order link, a date, or a title yet. This is by the author who wrote the City of Brass trilogy. I don't know anything about this book at all, except that I've seen on their account that they said that this is a book where enemies to lovers actually stayed enemies after becoming lovers. And from what I've read of City of Brass, I'm confident enough to purchase this book, and also excited about an enemies to lovers where they stay enemies. Very interested in that, especially after reading A Fate of Wrath and Flame, where we do have a set of lovers that become enemies, that stay enemies for a majority of the book until they become lovers again. That was such a fun dynamic of a relationship to watch, and so I'm very interested in this book. Speaking of fantasy romances that I had a really good time with, the next two are going to be in this genre. That is going to be Glow, which is going to be book 4 by Raven Kennedy in the Guild series. This is my favorite fantasy romance. We are following this character by the name of Oren. Oren is a favorite saddle or like concubine for King Midas in this world. King Midas is the king of the 6th kingdom, and everything he touches turns to gold. In this world, they used to coexist with humans and mate with them, and everyone was born with magical abilities. But then something happened, the Fays are gone, and they have not been seen in centuries, and people being born with magical abilities is becoming less and less. So in this world with the 6 kingdoms, in order for a king or queen to rule, they have to have a magical ability in order to take the throne. And King Midas has aspirations to rule more than just the 6th kingdom. In order for him to do that, he needs his favorite saddle by his side, and that is going to be Oren. But Oren is someone he locks in a cage. No one is allowed to look at her, talk to her, or especially touch her. And she is entirely gold from head to toe because she has been gold touched by King Midas. So she's definitely his most prized possession. Over the course of 3 books, there's so much character growth from Oren. And at the end of book 3, which is Gleam, we leave off with a huge cliffhanger, and I cannot wait for us to get Glow, because I'm excited to see what happens next, and also nervous. And some of the characters that we're following didn't survive the events from the last book, and I have to know what happened next. Then there is going to be the sequel to A Fate of Wrath and Flame. This is a book that I had so much fun reading. I actually have a vlog that you guys can go and follow my in-depth thoughts. In this book, we are following this character by the name of Romeria. She's approached one day by a lady named Sophie, and Sophie says that this person named Malachi has sent her to help her free Sophie's husband from wherever he is. She's not really a person that Romeria can say no to. So Romeria agrees to help her free her husband, and all she has to do is retrieve this stone from this place. But when Sophie goes to send her there, she actually kills Romeria by stabbing her in the chest with a horn, and Romeria wakes up in this entirely different fantasy world where the person that she was before she woke up in this body just murdered the king and queen and tried to take out the entire royal line. So as soon as she comes to life in this new world, she is immediately thrown in the dungeon for trying to kill her betrothed's family. There's so much world building in this book, and it is the best written fantasy romance that I have ever read. It is more plot focused than romance focused. I will say that is a very slow burn, especially because the love interest that she has, or the person she used to be, murdered his family and tried to kill him, his brother, and his sister. Romeria has to pretend to be someone that she actually despises, which is the old Princess Romeria, and she's unsure as to who to trust, and if the old Princess Romeria was heroic in her notions to bring war to this kingdom and to try to take out this royal line, and also try to gain back the trust of the new king, which was her fiance that she's still set to marry. There's so much stuff that happens in this book, and we leave off with a really big cliffhanger, and I just cannot wait for book 2. The next book that I am anticipating releasing in 2022 is going to be The Shattered City, and that will be book 4 and the last installment in the Last Magician series by Lisa Maxwell. I had so much fun reading these books. They're the most intricately woven in terms of plot in a YA book that I have ever read. It is as dense as I would say an adult fantasy book, and I rarely ever expect that in a YA series, so it was just refreshing and fun to watch her weave all these different plots. In The Last Magician, we're following this thief who is constantly sent back in time to receive these artifacts for this person who is raising her. However, she is sent back in time to complete this mission, and everything goes completely south, and she actually gets trapped in the past, and she gets caught up in a lot of the schemes and plots and ploys that everyone has going on, and in order for her to get back to her present time, she must pull off one of the biggest heists of her life, except the people that she has to trust to pull this heist off with, she does not trust, and they do not trust her. And Esther, who is our main character, Esther's ability to jump timelines get very tricky when you start altering how the future is going to look. This book was originally supposed to be a duology, and then I think it became a trilogy, and now it is a quartet, and this actually has been promised for sure to be the last book in the installment. And from our original plot to where we end in book 3, everything has been tossed, turned, and flipped on its head, and I'm excited to finally wrap up this series, and I want book 4 to join my collection on my shelves. The next book is one that I'm highly anticipating, but we have no information of as of yet, and that is because it's written by an independent author, and that is going to be Dawn of Wonder. I had such a strong emotional connection to Aiden, which is our main character in this book. Aiden is a kid who suffers from PTSD from the constant abuse at the hands of his father towards him and his mother. Something happens one day in the village where Aiden is being raised. Some slave traders come, and they end up taking his best friend, and he vows to always get revenge one day. And from where we leave at the end of book 1, he sets off to like accomplish this mission, and I just have to know what happens next. Now, the author of this book, whose name is Jonathan Renshaw, had quite a few health problems in the year of 2020 and 2021, and I read his blog that says he went through some pretty serious surgeries, and so he's trying to regain his health as well as write the next book, which has actually turned into 3 more books, and so he definitely has a lot going on right now, and I'm patient enough to wait. But if we do get more information during the year 2022 about the sequel to Dawn of Wonder, I will definitely be purchasing a copy. The next one we also have no information about at all, and that is going to be this secret book that Laini Taylor is writing. I love Laini Taylor. I really love Daughter of Smoke and Bone. I own 3 copies of Strange the Dreamer and Muse of Nightmares. She is one of my favorite authors. I would probably cry if I met her in person because I just live for the worlds that she writes, and she has been working on this secret book for like 4 freaking years, and it is in the same world as Daughter of Smoke and Bone and Strange the Dreamer. And now that she's built up this entire multiverse, I'm just so excited to watch it all tie together and to get back into her lyrical writing. And she writes tragedy that puts Shakespeare to shame, and I need it again. I know she's still writing it because I follow all of her updates on Instagram, and she also has a Patreon, I believe, but if we get any information, I'm purchasing that book. So the second to last book we have is going to be The Lord of Demons, and that is going to be the 3rd installment in the Burning series by Evan Winter. As I mentioned earlier in this video, I have not been getting my fix a lot in terms of like black magic and fantasy. Children of Blood and Bone really left me high and dry, but Beasts of Prey came through and saved the day. But Rays of Dragons is definitely how I get my fix in adult, and from where we leave off at the end of book 2, I'm counting down the time for when we get a release date for Lord of Demons. In Rays of Dragons, we're following this character by the name of Tao. Tao lives in this world where there is a very adamant caste system, and he is at the bottom of it. One day he angers someone who is actually higher ranking than him, and that leads to the result of his father being murdered. Tao vows to get revenge on everyone who played a part in his father's murder. So he enters this military of the lower people in the caste system and works his way to the top, and the story just takes off from there. Tao is a hothead, he's very short-tempered, he's very impulsive, and he gets himself into quite a bit of trouble. And the last book that I plan to purchase is going to be the second book in the Rise and Fall trilogy by Michael J. Sullivan. He's an author that I fell in love with, and I'm determined to read all his books because Theft of Swords was probably one of my more favorite reads of 2021. And The Rise and Fall is the newest trilogy in this world that he has created. And I'm currently running through all of the books that he has out already. And I know that by the time this book releases, I will have caught up already. And I'm highly anticipating it. This world starts with the book Theft of Swords, which follows two characters by the name of Hadrian and Royce. They are framed for the murder of a king. And as they try to exonerate themselves, they discover that the conspiracy runs so much deeper than the murder of a king of a small kingdom. And the world that Michael J. Sullivan has just created is unparalleled. I'm having so much fun reading those books. I'm so excited to catch up with the fandom and be caught up and be able to participate in the ongoing conversations without having to worry about spoilers. And that book is going to be a treat of the year for me. So yeah, those are all the books that I plan to pre-order and definitely purchase a physical copy of that will not be included in my 25 book restriction limit for the year of 2022. Now, with that being said, you guys can expect not to see any real hauls on my channel. I will be giving an update throughout the year about the books that I did end up purchasing. So far, I have done an unhaul to get rid of all the books that I know that I don't want anymore. I have done a bookshelf reorganization and a bookshelf tour to keep track and accountability of all the books that I currently own. I have gone through and looked at all the books that I know for a fact I want to pre-order and get my hands on as soon as they come out. So when we get into the nit and gritty of the year, I have no excuse to break my restriction. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you've made it to the end of the video, leave me a wallet emoji because we're going to be watching our coins all year. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time.